Okay, so I am back. I'm sorry this is taking so long. I didn't realize it would take that long. So, the first part cut off with me saying that if I was disfellowshipped, then I would leave. And that is what happened. And I left the organization. I want to make sure that I put out there, in case this should travel far enough, but I harbor no resentment against the person who told on me. Of course, I would have done the exact same thing if the roles were reversed. The worst thing about being disfellowshipped was how hurt and disappointed my mother was. That was really hard for me. I didn't want to do that to her. It wasn't intentional, it was just a side effect of the whole situation. I remember that I cried, but mostly that was for relief. I felt so much relief when I was finally disfellowshipped. I wasn't guilty anymore. I wasn't just torn and tormented feeling. Everybody knew now, and it's just how it was. I spent a lot of time just thinking and kind of processing everything that had happened, and I can remember specifically thinking all these self-imposed brick walls were tumbling down in my mind. I felt so free. I could be friends with anybody that I wanted to. No one was watching and critiquing my every move. No one had a right to do that anymore. I remember watching all the rated R movies that I had missed over the years and was quite surprised that they weren't as bad as the organization had always made them out to be. I know that's silly. I started making a lot of friends, and I eventually met a really nice, good guy that was my first boyfriend. He helped to teach me about work ethic and encouraged me to find a full-time job, which I did. One of my co-workers from that job became a roommate. Before that, I'd always had Jehovah's Witness roommates, and I remember being really afraid. How would I survive without a roommate helping to pay the bills? I am especially grateful for the friends and the support that I had at that time. And some of the people from that time I've actually stayed in contact with all of these years, which is really nice. My mom did still talk to me, but she put a ton of distance there. Very different, and I'm sure it was quite painful for her to do that to me. She made me disentangle myself from her. For those years, she had always paid my car insurance. My utilities were in her name, so I wouldn't have to pay a deposit. So I had to come up with all that money, and I was just scared to death. How was I going to make it financially? And I did. And that was actually a big confidence boost, because immediately, right then and there, I knew that I could do it. The congregation I was in at that time is Walla Walla, Washington. At the time, the population was about 40,000, and they had 2 congregations. And so that's fairly small. I was pretty much, every time I went out, I always ran into somebody. And of course, they were shunning me. I understood it. I used to do it myself. I expected it to happen, but it was still painful. And it was a constant reminder. And between that and having so much distance there between myself and my mother, I just wanted to get out of that area. And so I went to a trade school, and I accepted a job in another state, and I moved away. And I think that that was the best decision that I made at that time. I decided to close the door on that part of my life, not to think about it, not to dwell on it, not to reach back out to any of those people. I just was done. And for the last 15 years, that is how it stayed. I was, or am, very determined to prove everyone wrong about what happens to disfellowshipped people. New people that I meet, I barely ever tell anyone about my upbringing, and if I do, they always think it's hilarious, which is fine. No one gets it though. Only a Jehovah's Witness can understand what I'm talking about. Honestly, I am very glad that I was disfellowshipped. It catapulted me toward the wonderful life that I have now. But life is life, and I've had to learn some really painful, difficult lessons in the years since I left. But I can tell you, there has never been one moment, not even one moment, that I wished I were a witness again. It has always felt like I did the right thing by leaving. I didn't consciously choose to leave. I wholeheartedly believed it was the truth when I left. I was just so unhappy. I was basically committing spiritual suicide rather than a physical one. For years, when I've looked back on my upbringing, I always felt I was lucky to have the love of my mom and a group of supportive, loving people around me. So many people have had a much harder childhood than I did. It's just odd that I have no contact with most of those people who were such an important part of my life until I was 22. I only have contact with 3 people that I was close to before the age of 22, and one of those people is my mom. The crazy part is that all these years I've accepted this as being normal and okay, but recently I've begun to think it is not okay. When I first left, I was waiting for Armageddon to come and for God to kill me. At least I expected to have bad things happen to me to be disciplined by God. I felt I deserved that. The exact opposite happened. I felt protected and watched out for this entire time. No matter what happens, I've always landed on my feet, always had good people put in my life at the exact time I needed something. For many years now, I've said I don't believe in the God of the Bible, but I believe in something. Anyone who says they know for sure, beyond a doubt, what this something is lying, because nobody can know. Over the years, when I told people about being raised Jehovah's Witness, they'd always say, "Isn't that a cult?" And I'd always say, "Oh no, not at all." But in reviewing the information I've found online, I'm now absolutely positive that I was raised in a controlling cult atmosphere. I can hardly believe that I am posting my face on the internet to share my story. I know the people who knew me as a Jehovah's Witness will consider me an apostate, but I feel this is very important, and literally lives are at stake. I know of 2 suicides and 9 molestations from the time that I was with the witnesses. It's just not okay. Something's got to change. I hope something good can come from my experience. Until recently, I had no idea so many of the things that I was raised to believe and feel had stayed stuck in me and were creating problems in my life. If I could do one thing differently, it would be to have excavated and investigated this part of me sooner.